Good. How are you?
I'm doing good, doing good. We won't go too far into politics, but nothing blew up. Nothing blew up Wednesday. I guess it depends on your
Still,
perspective.
still here.
Yeah, we're still all here. Yeah, well, good. And we've been doing some fun stuff here at Docker, talking about rate limits and um,
Yeah.
yeah. So we're gonna today. We thought we'd talk a little bit about rate limits, how to check your rate limit, and those type of things. And then Chad's going to show us a little local caching.
Yeah. Yeah. So how could you run a local Docker image cache for not just the engine cache or the image cache, but actually so I'll show you a little bit about my home office and how it's set up because I've got a lot of computers, and so if they all would pull, then that would be a lot of individual requests, and instead I could just maybe pull it once and then reuse it locally for my entire home office. And so I'll show a little bit about how that's set up.
Yeah, cool. All right, let me look at the chat. Do we have some folks coming in?
Looks like we have a few.
We got some folks watching. Say hello in the chat. Love to see who's out there. See where you're at in the world, how things are going. But yeah, let's jump right into it. So let me share my screen. I'm going to move this out of the way and this out of the way. Oh, that's interesting. You can see us in the background. Let me let me move this out of the way. And yeah, sorry everybody for moving screens all around. I was actually testing out a lot of the rate limiting stuff right before we got in, because we can now you can take a look at, and actually let me make sure, and it's not showing. Okay, there we go.
Ah, Copenhagen. I love Copenhagen. Welcome. I only got to go once for a DockerCon, but it was fantastic. I would love to go again someday when we get to travel again.
Yeah, I'm usually not one that really loves traveling, but when I can't travel, I miss it.
Yeah,
I'm ready to get out there and see everybody out in the real world. Okay, let me. There's a couple blog posts that we had come out this week, and one last week. So one of the first blog posts you should take a look at, and let me put this into our chat. So this blog post was done by Matt Carter, and it talks about what you need to know, what we're planning on doing, what we're currently doing, how it's going to work, and how we're going to step the rate limiting out, roll the rate limiting out, kind of staggered. So Monday morning we did, we started rate limiting. We went full on at the 100 for anonymous and 200 for authenticated, but non-paying, so you don't have a plan. We did that for an hour, and then we bumped up to 5,000. And we wanted to have that little bit of a brownout window, so folks that are running things in CI/CD, building local, just so you can just test all your processes, see what's still working, what broke, those type of things. And so hopefully everybody had a chance to see that, how it affected their systems. We did that again yesterday morning, went all the way back down to 100 for anonymous and 200 for authenticated non-pro and non-team subscribers. We did a brownout window for that time, and now we're back up, I think, to 2,500. But where you can see where we're at in our rate limiting, if you come into this blog article and then you navigate over to understanding the hub rate limiting, and if you read down through this article, it will tell you what kind of error you'll get, and then also where we're currently at. This will stay up to date, evergreen with where we are with our rate limits. So you can be sure to come in here and say, okay, I should be seeing 2,500 right now, or I should be seeing 100, depending on if you're authenticated or not authenticated, and where we are at rolling things down. bookmark this URL. It's you'll be able to get a lot of info out of there. Hey, Adrian. Cool. All right. So that's the two main blog articles. But today, too, I want to kind of walk through the blog article I wrote last Friday, I believe. So let me pull that up. And in this article, it's not a very long article. It's not very, not super technical deep dive, but it does show how you could check your rate limits. So we're getting asked that a lot. How do I find, where am I currently at in my rate limiting? And the way this works is there's two headers that will be returned. So rate limit -limit and rate limit -remaining. So, and you can read it in this article, but the rate limit will tell you how many, what the rate limit is for that image. So if, and for you as how you're accessing Hub. So if you're coming in as anonymous, so you didn't do a Docker login, you'll be considered anonymous and you will be limited to 100 pulls per 6-hour rolling window. So it's a rolling window. And then, so let me explain that a tiny bit. So let's say Monday morning you come in and you do a Docker pull at 9 a.m. And if you look at the headers, you'll see, oh, I'm rate limited to 100 pulls, and then my rate limit remaining is 99. And it'll give you a timestamp in there. I think it's in seconds of what that limit is for. And that's a rolling 6 hours. So I made a request at 9 a.m. I get back, I'm limited to 100, and I got back 99 remaining. And then I wait, let's say 5 hours and 55 minutes, and I do another pull, and I'll get back rate limit is 100, and now I have 98 pulls left. And then as soon as you jump over into that, past that 6-hour limit of the very first request, you get that request back. So at 6 hours and 1 minute from the first request you made, you get that request back. So at 6:01, let's see if I get 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3 p.m. I'm allowed to still count on my fingers.
No judgment.
Thank you. Not after this week, right?
Yeah.
And so when you make another request at 3:01 p.m., you will get back rate limit is still 100, and now you still have 98, or you'll have 99 remaining. You basically, when it switches over and you get that rate limit, that one request back, it cancels out the one you just made. So they cancel out. And as that 6-hour rolling window rolls, you get requests back. So you do have, you can only make 100 requests within a 6-hour window, but it is rolling. So I hope everybody kind of gets that. It seems a little bit confusing at first, but it's really not. If you have any questions about that, put them in the chat if you would, please. And
that's for anonymous folks. So like
that's for anonymous folks.
No Docker login, just Docker out of the box.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we've been doing a lot of internal testing. I've been playing around with it. I've been doing real world things, right? And 100 requests per 6 hours rolling window is a lot for doing your local development, building images, testing things out, right? That should be enough. And we believe it is enough for anonymous to use Docker just as you normally would, right? And then if you authenticate, that limit doubles. So it goes up to 200. Just by going and give us a Docker ID and an email, you double that limit. And again, that's a rolling window. And again, it should be plenty. If you do the back of the napkin paper on anonymous pulls per month, you get like 20,000 or something. I forget the number. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
So you're way below the normal.
Like 106 hours is about 16 an hour. So and so if I think about sort of like the average use case of a developer, so that like CI things might be different, but an individual developer, I definitely rarely pull 16 things in an hour
Yeah.
continuously. Like every hour, pull 16 new things. So I think what the way that they were targeted was not to affect the vast majority of folks.
Yeah. I think we just looked at today. It's affecting 1.5% of our users.
Yeah.
So it's a small minority of our users that are getting affected, and there's solutions for it, and they're not demanding solutions, right?
Yeah. And we'll talk
So
about one of those a little bit later.
yeah, for sure. One of the easiest solutions, if you're running into rate limiting issues and you're anonymous, create a Docker account and you double it immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another really good article. I should remember that I wrote it and not say that humbly so.
It's a fantastic article. It's the best thing I've read this week.
So this is going to be huge. It's going to be enormous. Um, so I wrote this back in October 21st, and we wanted to kind of describe to the community of what a pool actually is. So I'm not going to go too much into it in this today, but let me drop that into the chat also. So go read through this, and this talks about how you determine the number of pools that you're going to be using day to day. So, and really focusing kind of on your Docker files. And you can read down through this. The TLDR is basically everywhere you have a from within your Docker file, that will typically do a pull from hub.
Yep.
Forget about caching, all those type of things, right? That'll typically do a pull for hub. Gets a little bit more complicated if you're doing multi-stage builds and you're using BuildKit. BuildKit will look at, and that's what I talk through here. So in this example, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 from commands in the Docker file. And depending on what target you use to build, will determine what froms are actually run.
Yeah.
Because they're dependent on each other, and BuildKit is able to figure that out, right?
Yeah.
It says, oh, if you're targeting foo, that relies on Debian Buster, right? And you'll only get that from. Now, if you target, and I might mess up the example because I haven't read the article in a bit, but if you target final, that's going to come from scratch. But you also see the from down here is from build, and build is right here on line 6, and that relies on Golang, which relies above it on this Golang, which actually pulls the Golang version, whatever this kind of.
Let's walk through it real quick. So
sure.
from Golang with a version, that's gonna, if you don't have that in your cache, it's gonna pull.
Correct.
But then it's setting it up as an alias for Golang. So then when you get to that
Correct.
Golang, that's the alias for the thing you've already got, and then it sets it as an alias for build. And so then if you
this will
go
get
to this one,
this will get skipped.
That's an image, right?
Yep.
Debian, and is as foo. And then this from scratch. Scratch is a special one, which we don't talk about very often, but it's on my list to talk about. Scratch is actually a container you'll never pull because it's empty. And so it really is a special container. It is a container with nothing in it. It's from scratch. So in this case, you would make potentially two pulls. And if you've got those images cached, so the versions are, you're not using latest. So that's another good, don't use latest because latest can change often. And also it's not the world's best practice to use latest. But if you say like from Golang and then that specific version, as long as that tag, actually, as long as you have that tag, you won't pull it again. Yes, don't use latest. And so when you've pulled Debian Buster and you've pulled Golang in that specific version and you have them in your image cache, you won't pull them again unless you go to a new engine or something, or you delete them. But yeah, you'll have them once. So that example would be 2.
Right.
Same for Docker runs. Like the first time you do a Docker run, you might, if you don't have the image, and maybe we should show folks like how they can look at what images they've got. Do you have a terminal handy?
Yes, I do.
How would I go about looking at what images I have?
It's nice and bigger here. Yeah, sure. So you do a Docker images command, and that will give a list of images you have locally.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. And yeah, and just back real quick to, but read down through this article. It explains everything that Chad and I are talking about. And please provide feedback. If you find something wrong, if you have a question, reach out to Chad or myself. Please, we're here we want to answer the questions. We want to make sure this is the best, go-to information you can get around the rate limiting. But yeah, so if you do a Docker images, you can see what images you have. I also wanted to, I want to run down through this article, checking your limits. Currently right now, so let me just walk down through it. So there's two types of requests you can make. You can make it anonymous and authenticated, of course. So if we take a look at the anonymous request, you still need a token, a JWT. And so that's what this command does here. It makes a curl request to our authentication service. If you don't pass a username and password, then you're anonymous, but you still get it back a JWT. So we need to get that JWT. So let's go ahead and run that. And here on the command line, you can see the full command I'm running. So running a curl command to this URL, and then I'm going to use JQ, and I'm going to pull out the token out of it and put that token inside of our little environment variable there. Yep. And then we can echo out our token, nice little token. And then what's cool about JWT, or scary to some folks if you don't understand how it works, which, to be honest, right? Because in this scenario, so you can look at the contents of the JWT token.
Oh, that's clever. Yeah.
Yeah. And since it's just base 64 encoded, usually what you do with the JWT is on the server side, you add a salt or a secret to the payload, and only the server knows that. And then you have like a checksum. And so if anybody would come in here and try and modify the payload, that checksum will be off. So when it gets to the server, it takes the payload you sent and then tags on the secret that it only has on the server, and then looks at the checksum. And so anytime you change anything here, that checksum will not match, and you'll be rejected. So a little scary at first that you see this big long gobbledygook and you think it's encrypted, and you can encrypt them also, so don't worry too much.
And normally you don't see this, right? Like this is all behind the scenes in Docker, but we're showing it so that you can actually effectively like peer into the API and see more than you would normally see.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. Exactly. And so you can see right here, here's the name of the image we're looking at. And then you'll see the parameters, pull limit and pull limit interval. So this is telling, for this image, it's for who you are with this anonymous JWT, you're limited to 100 within a time with a 6 hour window, 6 hour window, 21,600 minutes. Cool. So now what you can do is, now that you have a JWT, you can go and make a request. Where'd it go? Okay, right here. Sorry. You make another curl command. And what this is doing is very similar, but this time we're going to the actual registry, and we're asking for the manifest. And we're going to send in this bearer token that we just got from the command we ran before. And then we're going to pipe that in the grep and pull out the rate limits. So there you go. So like I talked earlier at the beginning of the show with the way we're rolling these out. So right now we're at 2,500 per 6 hour window. So that's why you see 2,500. Yeah, so I have the limit that I'm under right now anonymously is 2,500 for this image. And the remaining I have is 2,495. Right? If I run that again, 2,494. Sometimes you get double, and then 2,493. Right? Yeah. So that's keeps pulling it down. To be able to check,
and that's a good point. This is actually we should you might not want to automate this because it does count as a request right now.
Yes, and we actually, Chad, right, like literally 10 minutes before we came live. They just merged in the change in the prod. So now you can make a head request, and it won't count against you as a rate limit. Yeah. So if you do a -I, which is not super intuitive for doing a header request, but I think they already did the -H for sending headers and not just getting.
Yep.
Anyways, I'll talk to the curl folks.
Yeah.
It's probably been like
right
that.
On that.
Yeah, it's been like that forever. Oh, so what you saw there is nothing came back, right? And because it's not. Let's pull this. Clear all this out so we can not grep everything, so we can see the full. Yeah, I'll leave it like that. So here's the full. I'm unauthorized. Okay. Let's run again. Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, tokens expire, right? So
yeah. So let me go get it. Here's with the -I. Oh, that is super weird. Wonder if they're interesting. Let's do this. Of course, right?
We're all doing demos today, so we'll see what happens.
Take the head request out of there. We're gonna scroll up because that's the actual payload right there. Here it is. So why is my header request not working? Huh? Well, I'll have to ask the team. So it should be coming. I haven't updated the blog article yet. So yes, so Chad's warning stands true. And I have it real big here in the blog. When you run this command, it is going to hit your limit. So it will decrement your limit. And then the same thing is for authenticated users. You just, the big difference is the token that you get, you actually pass in a username and password. I'm going to move this over here. I'm going to type my actual password in. You get super long passwords. Let me move this back. And so now we have a token. And we could do the same thing. Let's go ahead and dump the code, the token. Yeah. I know what happened. I know what's happening here, Chad. It's because I'm a Docker employee and I got not special accounts, but I got team accounts, I got pro accounts. I'm like unlimited, right? So,
well, that's just you. I don't think I have those things.
That's just because you didn't ask.
That's probably, but that's because I never hit the limit. So,
yeah. Well, let me use my other account, my Tony Stark account.
How is a pull-through cache registry affected by limits when checking metadata for updated images? So that's a good question. So the pull-through cache doesn't check, and this is one of those things about Docker. The pull-through cache doesn't check the metadata to see, like, if you have a tag that's like version 1.1.1 and the cache has that, Docker won't actually check to see if there's a more recent version of that tag. If you have a tag that matches, it'll just give it to you. And that works for both your local image cache and also the registry cache. The way that the pull-through cache works is that if you ask for a tag and it doesn't have that tag, it will go out to the registry and grab it, and that would count as a pull request. But if you ask for 111 and it has it, it doesn't actually reach out and check to see if that 111 is the latest. It just says, I have 111, and it gives it back to you.
All right. Cool, cool. Okay, so I logged in with my test account that does not have any subscriptions. Just have a Docker ID and an email. And then when I decode the token, you can see it now. This says 200 because I'm authenticated, and so it doubles from 100 to 200. Okay, cool. And then let's run. Let me get the. Let's run our little curl command, and I'm going to pass in. This will come up here. So again, I'm going to curl, and I'm going to send in that bearer token that we have, and I'm going to ask for the manifest, and then I'm going to grep on the rate limit. And there we go, 2,500 and 24.99. And you'll see that countdown.
Yep. So there's a quick question about like, what about the evil latest tag? That's actually partly why latest is evil, is if you have a tag called latest, it doesn't actually matter how late it is, it will qualify. So once you pull latest once, it doesn't actually go back and check. So your latest might actually be the oldest, because once you have a tag that satisfies the need, you're not going to go get a new version. So it will only count if you hit the API to pull an image. So if you are checking against your local caches or a pull-through cache that you've got, that won't actually hit Hub. The only requests that hit Hub are the ones that decrement Hub bits. And one of the, I suppose, joys or side effects of Docker's sort of tag scheme is that it doesn't check. And so there's a couple of things. That's one of the reasons that people say don't use latest. Another one is just latest can move around. So it's much better to pin to the version, or what you'll see oftentimes is people will do multiple tags where you tag maybe when you push the tag, you'll push a tag for the major version, you'll push a tag for major minor, and you'll push a tag for major minor patch. And then you use whatever version you're comfortable with. So oftentimes I will say, like, I'm cool taking any patch release, so I will use version major minor, and I will not specify the patch. And then that way, on the next push, when the patch gets bumped, the major minor will get bumped with that patch, and then you'll get that next release. And so that's partly just something that you'll inform yourself about how does the project that you're using move, and what does that mean for you? Is that a safe automatic update that you should take, or should you wait? And oftentimes this is really only something that you'll see in automated environments like a CI environment, or if you're really proactive about cleaning your local cache, which as we're going to see in a minute, I am not very proactive about cleaning my local cache. So
okay, cool. Yes, thank you. Okay, I figured out the dash I. So I did a dash I above, and you can see that my limits stay the same. So you'll see it staying at 24.99, 24.99. If I take the dash I out, we'll see that we should see it start to drop. 498.
Yep.
My token probably just died. So do the so if you do the curl dash help, let me grep for header. So if you look here at dash H or dash H, it's expecting header after it. So when I did the command with dash H dash I, it
sure.
That's why I was getting a bad token. It was passing dash I to the server as my headers. So make sure you move it down. But I will update the blog with the dash I for sending just a head request. Did I say headers earlier? I'm sorry, a head request. and that way you don't get you don't have your limits affected. So those are the ways to check what your rate limit is at. Again, if you're going to do this any kind of script or anything like that, we don't advise you do that, right? You should have plenty of pools to be able to do working locally. There's other solutions, and actually, I think Chad, you wrote a blog post about this, of Ben, right? If you're using CI/CD, Jenkins, Circle CI, GitHub Actions, those type of things, there's better solutions than you should not just be staying anonymous within your CI/CD pipelines.
You should, yeah. I mean, by and large, it's because like the free hub accounts are just double the limits. Like, it never hurts to just log in, and we'll see that on the registry mirror that we're going to talk about here in a minute. I log into the registry mirror as well, and I think it's just a nice practice.
Yeah. Well, cool. That's really what I wanted to show, is walk through show those couple of blog posts, so you can get more information. Make sure you check those out. Make sure you check out the rate limit, the increase rate limits on Docker.com, and that we'll keep that up to date as we slowly roll down the limits down to the final numbers, which again will be 100 for anonymous and 200 for authenticated. Folks with pro accounts or team accounts, you will get your unlimited pools.
Yep.
And another great thing too is if you're an open source project, go check out a blog. Let's pull that up real quick.
While you're pulling that up, we'll just say hello to Omer, who's dropped by today. Thanks for dropping by.
Here we go. So Marina on our team here, Taka wrote a nice article talking about our support for open source software. So you can read down through this. If you qualify and you want to submit an application in here, there's a form to fill out, the open source community application form. Fill that out. Someone from Docker will get back to you, and we'll get you started in the open source project program here at Docker. So yeah, please check that out. If your projects fit the bill, please add those. Another note, we're working with a lot of the CI providers, a lot of the cloud providers, to allow unlimited pools for a lot of those images, right? And don't forget, we're coming with sneak scanning of official images soon. So all of our official images will be scanned. You'll be able to see the vulnerabilities. You'll be able to, feel confident in using those official images, right? So a lot of the other providers out there, or maintaining your own base images, right? It's a huge burden that's lifted off of a lot of folks. Still have to check your security, still check your base images and the code you put in them, still run scans again, them 100%. But we help you out by running all of our official images are scanned and kept up to date. So that's a huge feature of Hub.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll shut up, Chad.
Let's do it.
I'm not sharing. Oh, you know what? I was looking at that. I was looking at the blog article, like I'm sharing it and talking through it, but I did drop the link. Did I?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
George, there is scanning. So Docker Scan is available for logged in accounts, free but logged in accounts locally. And then the official image scanning is going to be, we'll scan all the official images, and the results will be available for anyone who's logged in and wants to go see it. So yes.
Yeah.
So let's talk about registry mirrors, or let's talk about my home lab real quick. So let's see. The way that this is cropping me, you can't quite see it, but right back here-ish is a Raspberry Pi cluster. There you go. So there's some lights. So this is my Raspberry Pi cluster, and I've got 5 Raspberry Pis in this. And then I've got a desktop under this desk. I've got a laptop, 2 laptops, 3 laptops.
Okay, now you're just bragging. No.
Well, because I've got different versions of
I
I've
just
got different versions of Windows, I've got different versions of Mac, I've got my personal laptops. I don't let hardware go away, so I have my ancient ThinkBook from like 4 startups ago that I use like a basically a print server, but it does run Docker. So all of those
yeah.
machines run Docker, and I've got a bunch of automation happening where stuff starts and stops all the time, and I've got a little mini uh, build lab, and so um, I I pull a lot probably from, or I used to pull a lot from Docker, but I also have, and you can't see it because it's off camera. I have a Synology that's sitting over here on the side. And for those of you who don't know, Synology is just a NAS, but it's a NAS um, that also runs Docker. And so when I started working from home and I didn't have a crazy work internet, uh, I decided to go ahead and get a, a pull through cache running on my Synology. So let's look at what it takes to get that going. So I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to do this. So let's see. This is not the one. This is the one I want. So as a pull through cache, um, let's get rid of this little thing. So what is a pull through cache? I think we talked about it a little bit in the stream already, but it is a way to run a Docker registry that you say, hey, I want Redis. And the cache will look to see if it has Redis, much like your local cache would look. And if it has it, it will serve it to you directly. If it doesn't have it, it'll go out to Hub on your behalf and pull it for you and keep a copy of it and then give it back to you. And then the next time when you ask for that same image, it will have a local copy cached. And so that's the hence the name the pull through cache, because you don't see this. Um, you just set it up and let it go. Um, there are other software packages that do it, but they're much more complicated. And so I'm just going to show the really simple one, because you
Is
can
it
just it's just registry. It's the same way that you would run basically like a an open registry, which is very similar to like if you just ran a Git server, not anything around it, just actually just like a very simple bare Git server. Registry is kind of like that.
yeah?
Um,
And did you wait, Chad? Did you say set it and forget it?
yeah, I do set it and forget it because
Remember the commercial? The what
yeah.
the chicken, or was it chicken? Sorry, my ADD mind is that's awesome.
Well, I think
But you
that
do, right?
yeah,
Right?
because once you well, so that's the for me that's always the trick is once I set it up, maybe there's a power outage or something and it doesn't come back, and then it blows up. Um,
Got to
so this is basically the stanza you need to add, and that's it. Um, and once you've added this, then you will have a pull through cache. And so there are lots and lots of options and ways to tweak this, and um, it can get really complicated. But for like most people, just setting it up and using this will get you a pull through cache. Also, by logging in, if you have private images in the namespaces you're allowed to pull from, it will cache those as well. So let's go to a terminal.
real quick. So Georgia, yes, it's like a proxy server for your
Yep.
images. Yeah.
Yep. And uh, so that's a good question about how often it clears out the cache. I think it's I think it's 7 days. You can tweak it, but I think by default it holds it for 7 days. Um, you might be able to also tweak it to have a certain size. Um, I haven't done either of those. I just let it. It's on a NAS on mine with several terabytes of free storage, so I haven't really uh, done too much to tweak that, but I'll show you what it looks like when we get going. But just for like the average user, how could you do this really easily? I'll use compose as the example here. And this is the registry. I'm going to use the registry 2.7. I could say this 2.71 and pin it to an exact version, but I'm okay taking patch updates. I'm going to bind it on the outside to the default. So basically, like, I'm going to try to bind it to everything, all the IPs, and bind it to 5,000, and then connect that to port 5,000 inside. So by default, the registry runs on 5,000. And the remote URL I'm going to try to proxy is Docker. And so this is effectively all you need to set up for this to work. There's lots of other things you can set, and we'll talk a little bit about some of those. And then if you do Docker compose up, you'll have a cache registry. And that's pretty much all you have to do. And I'll put this, I'm going to make if you go to my GitHub a little bit later this afternoon, I will have this all up with a nice make file, and you can just type make and it'll go. Or you can run Docker compose. And I will do some of the examples with some of the other parameters you can tweak and twist. But this is it. So now, how do you get your clients to use this? And so that's where things get a little more complicated. And since I'm running this on Docker Desktop and using Docker Desktop, I'm going to go grab Docker Desktop. This one I can't make bigger, unfortunately. At least I don't think I can. No, can't. But what it says here is there is a registry mirror. And I've set this up to use my the one that I run internally locally, and I've got it all set up with HTTPS, and it's got fancy. But I'm going to take this out and do. Actually, I need to get the IP address of this host, and I'm going to go back to Docker, and I'm going to say, put this in here, port 5,000, and this is not behind something with certificates, so just use the sort of open one. Ooh, that was exciting. Oh, yeah, I just restarted Docker, so it killed my image. I'll have to restart that in a second. So while that's restarting, okay, that's up and running again. Now I'm going to go back and do Docker compose up. All right. And we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and delete an image. So MySQL, and then I'm going to go pull MySQL, and it should, hopefully, here we go. So you'll notice it takes a little bit longer to download. And it's like watching paint dry.
Here's a default upload purging maintenance is 168 hours, 1 week.
So it is a week. So that's
Thank
how
you, George.
it'll cash out in a week. So now I've got MySQL. So let's do Docker images. We'll see if I can type Docker images. You'll notice I've got a bunch of stuff in here. It's a lot of random garbage, but MySQL is in here. And if I do delete this now and pull it again, it should go a lot faster.
And like,
and there,
oh,
and
sorry.
so yeah,
Go
this
ahead. Go ahead.
is, you can see it's definitely happening a lot faster now. And so the reason that that is because it's local. And so I could pull probably something really large. No, notice I am just grabbing stuff and I'm using latest, which is totally not a great.
Shame.
I
Shame
know
on you.
I should be ashamed of
No.
myself, but that's because I don't want to go look up tags and I don't know what a good
Yeah.
Java version is. Um, but
Yeah.
I have a
That's
fairly
wicked
fast
fast.
home. I have a fairly fast connection, so I don't necessarily feel this. But pulling over and over again, especially to Raspberry Pis, you'll notice. So let's for those at home that have a Synology, let's talk about how to. Oh yeah, here. So um, oh, I don't know how to.
So,
Jorg. Oh man, I don't know. I'm gonna butcher the name, but he definitely found the parameter that you would need to change, which is storage, maintenance,
yep.
upload, purging, age. So if you want that to be longer than a week, you can make that longer than a week. I I've just left it to the default, and I run this on Synology. So I'll show you a couple of things. This is how I've set this up in my Synology. So I did a screenshot because I've got passwords and things. But just to show you, and I'll put this in the GitHub repository that I'm setting up. I do a couple of things. I set up the Docker container, and this is how you can configure a Docker container in the Synology interface. But you'll notice I just set a bunch of environment variables. So I set my proxy username, the remote URL, the HTTP host, and the adder. In this case, I'm telling the registry that it's going to listen to HTTPS docker.chadmetcalf.com on this port. But when actually that's the host it's going to listen as. But the adder it's going to listen as is this machine on port 5000 because I use a reverse proxy that's built into Synology that can use Let's Encrypt to get the certificates for me. So, and I don't have to run an Nginx and deal with Let's Encrypt. I let the reverse proxy of which I think is actually Nginx anyway, of the Synology take care of it. So I set up two things. I set up the container, and then I set up a reverse proxy with these very stats. I want to use. I'm going to call it the registry. I'm going to set up the host name for docker.chadmetcalf.com. Chadmetcalf.com is I've got a DNS server that knows where that is. I'm listening on 8443, and when those requests come in, send that over just plain HTTP to localhost on 5000. So Synology Docker using registry v1. So Jorg, I think that there are probably older versions that do, but the best as I can tell is the new Docker, I guess, extension in Synology does pull from v2 registries just fine. And I think actually registry is one of their like most popular image. So at least for this thing, you should be good to do this. And you'll notice though, like I actually don't know how large it's I think my cache is less than a gig, but also look at the RAM usage here. It's 24 megs, right? So like running this on my Synology that has I think it has 8 gigs of RAM. It doesn't even feel it, right? Like it's not it's so small, especially for a home lab usage. But you could totally run this in an office environment as well, and then you just set everybody up to use this. And the Synology version is crazy fast. So my Synology's got a direct connection to the router that I use, so it goes out on the internet. I've got gig connection everywhere to the Synology, so everything's pretty fast. And so it just really works really well. So this way, I only ever make one request in a given week to, and then yeah, that image will drop off in a week because I haven't tweaked the settings. But then it's transparent to me, so I never really notice that it's there. So if I go back to settings in the desktop, so the way that you would do this is you go to settings, you go to registry mirrors, and then you point it to whatever mirror you want. And I'm going to repoint it back to, in this case, docker.chadmetcalf.com port 8443. And I'm going to apply and restart. It's going to restart my Docker daemon. On a Pi, let's see, SSH to Pi02. On Linux, this is configured in Docker daemon.json. And so this Raspberry Pi by default will use the same cache, and the cache is aware of the different types of images. So the fact that I'm pulling ARM over here and x86 elsewhere is not a problem. So that's, I think, also pretty cool.
Yeah.
But that's how you make it happen.
Nice.
So I will have a register in my GitHub. So github.com/metcalfc. I will have a walkthrough with all of this stuff built in, and I'm also writing a blog post that will come after that registry is up there. So George, it is a container on its own, and the downloaded images would be stored inside of that container. So in the container's file system. Because mine has only ever gotten up to a gig, I've never created a volume. The Synology can happily create a volume and give it to a Docker container. And that's probably the more performant way to make that work. But I didn't set up any volumes. I don't think I set up any volumes. Let me see. Let's look again. Oh, well, I might have set up a volume. I can't click on this tab to see what the volumes are because it's not really logged into my Synology because I don't want to go expose all my passwords and whatnot. But yeah, you could totally attach a volume and say, I want data to go in here. And if you want, that configuration file for registry, there's a lot of parameters. So if you don't want to set them all in the environment variable path, you just want to actually create the config file and use that, you can use volume to put that into the container as well. But yeah, I run registry as a container, and then I probably do use a volume for the image repository, and that just is, and you don't have to, it just makes it more performant because the copy on write file system is not going to be as fast as a native file system.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
Perfecto.
that is for home users, that's the easiest, and especially since we're largely all working from home now, that's an easy way. So if I didn't have this Synology, this tiny little ThinkPad, I might run it there. You probably could run it on like a Pi, but you'd be kind of, if you had a USB, maybe a USB hard drive, that would be a good idea. I wouldn't do it to like a flash card. That would probably be painful. But yeah, you should be able to make most of those things work. And certainly there's other like I think Harbor has a registry. It's just a much bigger, more complicated thing. I think it takes a Kubernetes cluster to run it. Yeah. So, oh man, I wish I could say this name right, but I'm gonna say Jorge you're probably wrong. Umlauts and things I'm just not good at. But if you look at the config file, uh, every single stanza has a name, and you can put, so in this case, if you look at registry, storage, maintenance, upload, purging, age, right? So in the configuration file, it's going to be in the registry configuration file under a, a I guess it's YAML, right? So then under storage, under maintenance, under upload, purging, under age. And so you can sort of reverse out the environment variable you want to set so that you can either do all configuration file, all environment variable, or some combination of those two things. Yeah, that's exactly what this looks like. Yeah. So, George,
I
the
just
reason I like environment variables in this case is I can set them
there it
in
is
the
right there.
UI of the Synology, and it's just super easy. So yeah, here's the, if you look at the stanza that's on the screen right now, there's the maintenance stanza, the upload, purging, and the age. And so that's within the storage subsection. And so you can
Yeah,
just grab all the different
let's go. It's this
sort of,
fun when you got to, okay, there's
yep.
storage, then you got to go up another one, logs. Okay.
So it's storage is the top level. So if we go back, if
It
you scroll
is.
back down,
Yeah, it
so
is.
the
It is.
top
Yeah.
top, top level is registry, and that's
Yeah.
like the application, right? And so that's actually
Yeah.
that's like the file. I'm in the registry, and so then registry, storage. Then the next
Storage,
one down is
maintenance.
maintenance. The next one down from that is upload, purging. The next one down from that is aging. So you could set all these parameters by environment variable. And actually, the other reason I like this, George, is I could do it in Compose, and Compose could do it for me, and then I would never have to remember any of this, and I don't have to copy a file around, and I think that's awesome. So
Yeah.
now, if there's like 492 of them, like, okay, maybe I should just do a configuration file at that point. But for the 4 or 5 that I set, no big deal.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, good. That was a whirlwind tour of rate limiting and caching. Yeah, I would, there's a lot of folks, not a lot, but there's people talking about the rate limits and talking about other solutions, right? I would just, my advice, right, if I was still consulting, you really have to look at the ROI, right, of these different cloud providers, different image repositories. Docker has a lot of features with official images being secure official images. It's the de facto registry. If you went to another registry, you have to keep those official images up to date, right? There's a lot more maintenance, maintaining. You have to update everything, right? And so if you really look at, even hired a junior developer, the amount it costs, their time is worth a certain dollar amount, right? And then you look at how much am I going to pay them to maintain these other registries. And I would challenge everybody to go and put those numbers down on paper, right? And then look at what you would pay for, a pro or team account. And it just kind of makes sense, right? It makes financial sense to purchase an account, right? If you're using it that much, right?
Yeah. And then even if you're not, like, just create an account, a free account, and log in, and you get double. And then if you're doing things like, if you're using GitHub Actions, we have a partnership with GitHub, but also GitHub Actions has a project cache, so you can use the Docker GitHub Action builders, which can use that project cache, and basically keep copies of images around in the project cache. So you can do a lot of things to reduce the number of pulls that we make, and not even just for like Docker's sake, but just like, I think we're also used to this, that like we don't think about the fact that like all of these bits are on the wire, and they, one, they take up bandwidth, but two, like it takes up the environment and takes up everything else. So like, what are the ways that we can, without impacting our work, do a little bit more work and reduce the consumption that we use? And that's true for any cloud environment. Like If you can make a small change and get back consumption that you don't have to make anymore, that's just net beneficial for everybody. But
Yeah.
we'll probably. I know that Crazy Max was on. Kevin was on last week. We'll have some more content coming out about how like the actions or build caches or all these things can also affect this, because I think lots of folks on an individual developer don't see this. They'll see it maybe more in a CI system. And so like, what can you do? I've got Peter might take over a blog post that I'm supposed to be writing about how to do this in another CI provider. So like, we're definitely putting out more and more information. So follow me on Twitter, follow Peter on Twitter, come back next Thursday, same time, same place, and then keep apprised of the blog, and we'll keep giving out more information about how can you make your loops faster, and not really notice any impact. Go get a registry cache because that'll help.
Yes. Awesome. Well, I think that's it for the day.
Yeah.
Appreciate everybody joining in the interaction. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. George and Jorge. Oh man, I'm still butchering your name. And Omer, thanks for coming back again. And we'll see you next week, same time, Thursday at 10.
See you guys. Have a great week.